You know the feeling. It's 2 in the morning, you're staring at the ceiling, and your brain is obsessively replaying an argument. You're mapping out all the perfect comebacks you should have said. Meanwhile, the person who actually started the conflict is completely unbothered. They are likely fast asleep, entirely unaware of the mental gymnastics keeping you awake. You spent the day aggressively defending your position because you knew you were right. But winning that verbal exchange is exactly what cost you the mental battle. By engaging with their toxicity, you allowed them to pull your strings. Every time you matched their volume or countered their insults, you handed them control over your emotional state. Your instinct to fight back and defend your pride is the exact mechanism destroying your peace of mind. Ancient Eastern philosophy has a precise name for this exhausting reactive state, the shishen. It is your conditioned, highly sensitive ego, a part of the brain entirely consumed by the binary concepts of winning and losing. Here are the mechanics of the shishen. We have 2 nodes representing right and wrong. When provoked, your ego traps you in a rapid feedback loop between the two, burning through baseline energy reserves simply to maintain a state of outrage. You think you are fighting a real threat, but this binary obsession traps you in an illusion. You end up swinging at shadows, exhausting yourself against an enemy that only exists in your own head. Every ounce of anger you generate is a blade you polish and hand directly to your opponent, teaching them exactly how to hurt you next time. Surviving manipulative people requires abandoning these conventional defenses entirely. You need a completely counterintuitive strategy. Thousands of years ago, a master trainer named Ji Shengzi presented a paradox to a king that perfectly outlines this strategy. It's known as the wood chicken protocol. When tasked with training a fighting rooster, the master observed how most birds behave. A bottom-tier fighter is loud. It puffs up its feathers, screeches, and immediately attacks anything that moves. To the untrained eye, this looks intimidating, but master strategists view this chaotic aggression as a massive liability. The bird is so easily triggered that an opponent can dictate its every move simply by feinting. Over 40 days, Ji Shengzi stripped the bird of its reactive instincts. He trained it to ignore other roosters crowing loudly, to ignore sudden movements, and eventually direct physical provocation. The result was the absolute ceiling of combat capability. When placed in the ring with a screaming, aggressive rival, the master-trained bird did not move a single muscle. It stood so perfectly still, it looked like a rooster carved from solid wood. The bird had completely bypassed its reactive ego, the shishen. Instead, it operated entirely on what is called Shantian Yuan Shen, a state of innate, deep, unshakable awareness. Facing this terrifying absolute stillness, the aggressive rivals realized their intimidation tactics were useless. They panicked and fled without a single strike. You don't need a literal fighting ring to apply this. The exact same dynamics happen in your office when a coworker tries to take credit for your work, or at a family dinner when a relative throws a passive-aggressive insult. This animation illustrates the first half of the wood chicken tactical mantra. Don't touch, don't stagnate. When an insult flies toward you, you refuse to take the emotional bait. You let the hostility pass cleanly through you without latching onto it or dwelling on the slight. The second half of the mantra is don't follow, don't trail. As the aggressor tries to escalate the situation or drag you into a maze of twisted logic, you maintain your position. You refuse to engage with their changing narrative. You are no longer acting as a punching bag. You become a bottomless mirror, simply reflecting their chaotic behavior back at them in total silence. By executing this absolute non-engagement, you deny the aggressor the one thing they need. You actively starve the conflict of psychological oxygen. Hostility requires friction to survive. A toxic person expects pushback, defense, or anger to validate their own behavior and keep the argument going. Look at how this dynamic plays out here. When vector arrows of hostile energy hit a completely unresponsive, impenetrable boundary, there is no friction. The hostility is forced to violently rebound, reversing direction and hitting the source node with the exact same force. The person trying to provoke you is left holding the full weight of their own unanswered vitriol. They become deeply frustrated, physically exhausted, and ultimately damage their own standing while you sit comfortably in silence. The most devastating counterattack doesn't require raising your voice. It simply requires stepping aside and letting the enemy collapse under their own momentum. True dominance never comes from out-yelling someone in public or delivering the perfect comeback. It comes from shattering the illusion that their words ever had the power to make you react in the first place. By embracing the absolute stillness of the wood chicken strategy, you insulate yourself from the chaos of toxic people. You take permanent control over your life's trajectory, anchored securely in the center of the board. Think of the person in your life who constantly gets triggered, overthinks every interaction, and drains their own energy fighting pointless battles. Send them this video right now. It is time to put down the knife, stop fighting the illusion, and master the devastating power of standing perfectly still.